What's up everyone, Vu of nVu Films again, and I am back with another idiotic video for you to watch. Today I have another lens review for you, but this time something a lot less expensive. So, if you are a Fujifilm user, Fujifilm X-mount user to be specific, you are probably very familiar with the Viltrox lenses that I have recently reviewed. The Fuji 35, 23, 50 f2s, and the rest of Fuji's lineup. You may not be familiar with this very budget-friendly lens from Pear Gear. To know exactly where they originate from, but this is a 35mm f1.6. It is only, let me check my pricing. It is only $69.99. So under $70 by a penny for a lens. The one caveat here is that it is a manual focus lens. So if you are a wedding photographer or a photographer that is taking photographs of very fast moving objects, people, what have you, this will be very difficult to use. But if you're taking more pictures of products, of flowers, of things more stagnant, you could definitely use this as a photography camera while using manual focus. Now for videography, that's a different story entirely, because most videographers, or I'd say a lot of videographers, use manual focus lenses, or even if they have an autofocus lens, they use manual focus because like the rack focus, they pull focus and all those things. And with all the focus assists available on the Fujifilm, in my case, the Fujifilm X-T4, such as focus peaking, you could definitely get some pretty decent in focus shots, even at wide open aperture such as f1.6. As you can see in the video examples I've been showing, I'm not a professional focus puller. I actually think I suck at it really bad because I usually don't use it. I always rely on autofocus a lot of times on most of my videography gigs. So I tried my best and I felt like I was able to nail focus just based on looking at the screen and looking at focus peaking. The overall lens is built very well. It's definitely not weather sealed by any means, but overall it is a solid build. It's very hefty. Matter of fact, this is how big it is compared to the 35mm f2 Fuji lens. And as you can see here, it's a lot smaller, but it's a lot heavier than the Fujifilm lens. And I mean, overall well built. It feels like it would cost more than $70. That's for sure. There's definitely nothing wrong with the build quality of this lens. And you know, this is how you actually and to take it apart, if you don't want to use lens hood, I just leave it on because it's so small anyway. But if you don't want to use the lens hood, you first have to take the cap off and then screw the small metal lens hood off, which is just this, and it's definitely metal. There's not a plastic lens hood, and it reveals the lens element. Overall, it's a very nice piece of glass overall. Now, as I said before in my other reviews, I'm not going to be taking pictures of bricks and, you know, what have you. But what I can say is the image looks good. The image looks really sharp. I don't see any noticeable softness in the center. Overall, I think very usable lens for photography and videography. The only thing is, I don't know about the coating because it cannot handle flares very well. A lot of times I like to film backlit subjects with like flare coming behind them, and this thing really struggles with lens flare. I would say it is unusable if you're trying to shoot any video or photo where you want to use lens flares artistically. With that said, if you don't really care for that, if you don't do that kind of thing and you're just shooting things, you know, with good light directly, this thing works great. Would I recommend it over like the more expensive autofocus lenses? No. If you are able to afford these autofocus lenses, you know, whether it be the Fuji lens or the Fujifilm lenses here, I would go for those. Now, what would this lens be good for as a budget option? Anyone who just wants to, just experiment and, you know, be able to shoot some artistic stuff at like wide open f1.6, or if you're a wedding filmmaker or a filmmaker that may need to use a brighter lens in low light situations, without bumping ISO or what have you, I think this is a great option, especially for wedding videographers. If you're most of the time you're on like a for versatility, you're on like a 16 to 55 f2.8, and then it comes nighttime and it's getting kind of dark, and that f2.8 is not cutting it on the Fujifilm's APS-C sensor. This would be a good option for your low light shooting, especially since autofocus might not be the best choice when you're filming a reception where people are dancing and they're like all over the place and you're trying to zone in on a subject. It's probably the best bet to use manual focus, and in that case you have a very fast aperture f1.6 lens here where you could manual focus in and get really nice shots of people having a good time at a wedding at nighttime. So overall, if you're just looking for a nice high quality budget friendly, obviously at only $70 or so lens, and you're willing to do the manual focus, have at it. I think this is a good buy for $70. Now, one thing I will say is on the Fujifilm system, especially the X-T4 that I have here, in order to use this and for the camera to be able to allow you to use this lens, you're going to have to go into the menu system and select the option where you could use the camera without a lens, because it's gonna not really read any like electronic information from this lens. So everything is any of the like aperture and all the settings for the lens, you have to look at the actual lens itself, as the screen on the Fuji X-T4 or whatever Fujifilm camera you have is not going to tell you what aperture you're at. It's gonna, I believe it just says 0. So if you want to see where you're at, you have to look at where you are on the lens here. Okay. So overall, that's it. I think it's a very good option. If you're looking for a budget lens and you don't mind using manual focus, I think overall it has a very good quality image, other than the fact that it cannot handle lens flares that well. But yeah, guys, let me know if you thought this video was helpful. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. It is very helpful as a videographer at this time. So thanks a lot, guys. Till next time, lighten up.